If tonight feels oddly alive, if the air seems to lean in, if your chest carries a hush that isn't quite sorrow and isn't quite fear, then you are exactly where you're meant to be. Perhaps certain numbers have been trailing you like gentle constellations: 777, 444, 333, 999, surfacing on screens, receipts, road signs, as though the world were speaking in a code your spirit already understands. This is not a glitch of attention. It is how destiny taps without breaking the door. You didn't wander here. You were gathered. And while the noise of the world hums on as if nothing has shifted, something ancient is moving quietly in the unseen. The seal is being set upon those chosen to carry light, what prophets hinted at in symbols, what your soul has remembered in fragments, the 144,000. You've known the ache of being the outlier in rooms that reward sleepwalking. You've felt honesty burn in your throat while the moment begged for costume. You've carried solitude like armor, not because you preferred it, but because your spirit could not digest what was easy for others to swallow. None of that was failure. It was formation. The disappointments that seemed cruel, the detours that felt needless, the doors that shut just when you knocked the hardest, they were chisels, shaping a vessel that can hold a brighter flame without spilling it. The seal is not ink on skin. It is a key turning deep within the heart, a wordless yes exchange between heaven and your willingness. It makes almost no sound, and yet it changes everything around you. If these words meet you beneath the surface, answer them with something small and brave. In the comments, tell me the number that's been finding you. Let it be your quiet signal that you hear the call. And if this feels as though it were written with your name in the margin, stay close by subscribing so you don't miss the next page as it turns. I'm not asking for attention. I'm inviting you to take your place. When you raise your hand, heaven answers without applause. This is not about being lifted above anyone. It is about being sent deeper into love. Those who are sealed do not seek stages. They steady rooms. They carry a warmth that doesn't flare and fade, a compassion that does not collapse under weight. Lately you may have felt it rising, dreams with color you can't dismiss. A clarity that slices through fog, a sudden warmth rushing your chest with no known source, a gentle heaviness that feels less like burden and more like being held. These are not mood swings, they are calibrations. Your inner compass is waking and pointing, away from performance, toward purpose. Do not be startled if the old world loosens from the edges. Certain friendships may drift without drama. Habits that numbed you may turn tasteless. Invitations that used to thrill you may land with a soft thud. This is not punishment. It is mercy. What cannot carry you forward is being set down so your hands are free for what can. The seal does not make you visible to crowds. It makes you unmistakable to assignment. Your words will weigh differently. Your silences will say more than your speeches. Your presence will begin to gather those who are ready to remember themselves. If fear flares, what if I'm imagining this? What if I'm wrong? Answer gently. Fear is loudest when it is losing its job. You do not have to argue with it. Breathe slow. Place a hand over your heart and let one sentence steady you. I am ready to carry what is mine. Readiness is not perfection. It is willingness. And willingness is the doorway the seal walks through. In an age addicted to spectacle, the holiest things remain quiet. Seeds do their boldest work in the dark, and then, suddenly, without drama, they break open. Tonight is such a moment. You may not wake to trumpets or dreams with neon borders, but you will notice a steadier peace where panic used to live. Choices will lean toward truth with less debate. You will feel drawn to eyes that hold a familiar light. The path ahead, once fog wet with doubt, will hum with a tone you can follow even when you cannot see far. Destiny rarely arrives to be admired. It arrives to be lived, so sit a little taller. Let your breath deepen until it feels like a homecoming. If the numbers have followed you, bring them here, into speech, into a small public yes. And if your heart is whispering stay, then stay. Subscribe now, so the thread does not slip from your hands. This is not a crowd to entertain. It is a gathering to entrust. The heavens are not watching to judge. They are witnessing you step into what they wrote in love before you knew your first word. In a few moments, we'll open the first door, not with speculation, but with clarity. We will look at what the 144,000 truly signifies, why this number has haunted prophecy and stirred awake so many souls, and how a code older than memory is becoming a living movement in our time. Carry this with you until then. You were never overlooked. You were prepared. And tonight, preparation becomes purpose. Long before you ever learned to pronounce the number, it was already walking beside you like a shadow with a heartbeat. It visits the ancient pages as a sealed company, yet refuses to be caged inside a head count, because what it names is less a census than a cadence. The 144,000 is prophecy's way of pointing at a living pattern, souls set apart not for pedestal but for purpose, not for applause but for assignment. When you hear it and your chest steadies like a tuning fork struck somewhere deep, that is not superstition. It is recognition. In heaven's arithmetic, 12 means order and foundation. Multiplied upon itself and magnified, it becomes a structure capable of carrying will into the world without cracking. Not paper math, but people math. You were never asked to contort yourself into a narrow mold to qualify. The preparation began the day you felt foreign in rooms that required masks for entry. Loneliness did not prove you lacked belonging. It proved you would not counterfeit it. Training arrived disguised as heartbreak that shoved you toward honesty, as quiet nights that taught you to listen, as losses that emptied you of what would have leaked the light you now hold. Every season that felt like subtraction was an apprenticeship, easing you out of the noise so your spirit could learn the sound of its own authority. Many who carry this code come by way of fire, not because they were chosen to suffer, but because they could be trusted to transmute. Sealed unsettles some, as if it meant isolation. In the mouth of the spirit, it means alignment that withstands weather. It does not lock you away. It anchors you within. It means the crowd stops bossing your choices. It means the oldest pain in your story loses voting rights over your future. It means your yes grows heavy because it is clean. When the seal rests, the field around your life shifts quietly. Rooms that once agitated you calm in your presence. Your words gather gravity and make flattery unnecessary. Even your silence instructs, because the frequency it holds tells the truth without raising its volume. For generations, we have argued about when and how these ones appear, whether they rise at once like a sudden constellation, or flicker on across centuries like lanterns scattered through a field. The answer is simpler and more beautiful than the debate. They appear whenever a life reaches the resonance of truth and refuses to drop it, and they gather whenever enough such lives stand at the same time. What looks fixed from far away feels like a threshold up close. When a critical mass chooses clarity over spectacle, the collective story bends. Culture may nickname it coincidence. The soul knows it as convergence. You are watching such a bend now, the rising restlessness for meaning, the fatigue with costume, the ache for integrity. Those currents are not random. They are the tide lifting the willing. Carrying this code is not a crown that separates you from the world. It is an apron that sends you deeper into it. You become a hallway others can walk through, a bridge over waters that once tried to drown you. You answer confusion with the clarity of a life that has stopped arguing with itself. Your task is not to correct every passerby. It is to remember so vividly that those ready to remember recognize themselves in your eyes. Your story becomes invitation, not lecture. Your courage becomes permission, not pressure. Your boundaries become blessing, not wall. There's a reason the number rings with 12 upon 12, a cathedral of living stones. 12 marks governance and design, layered on itself and expanded. It becomes a pattern strong enough to host heaven's weight on earth. You feel this architecture whenever your inner life chooses wholeness over performance. Whenever you take the slower, honest route rather than the quick, flattering one. Whenever love chooses truth where pleasing would be easier. The old world may call it stubbornness. The spirit calls it fidelity. Those who walk in this pattern are not flawless. They are faithful. They return to alignment quickly after a stumble. They prefer a clean no to a charming maybe. They reconcile with themselves before they try to impress anyone else. If you wonder whether you belong in this company, do not listen for thunder. Listen for the small, steady yes that survives your doubt. Those who carry the code are drawn by resonance more than argument. They may have read the ancient line, but it was the life behind the line that claimed them. They felt a window open in their chest when they chose compassion over cynicism. They sensed a distant bell when they told the truth softly instead of performing it loudly. They discovered that peace has a spine, and that love without order leaks while order without love petrifies. They live at the meeting of the two. Tonight the number matters not because the cosmos learned to count, but because your interior has grown strong enough to answer without flinching. The mark is not a stamp you flash at doors. It is a signal that makes you trustworthy in any room. It will not spare you every storm. It will teach you to carry a climate. You will notice decisions that once exhausted you becoming simpler, not because life simplifies, but because duplicity is expensive and you no longer shop there. You will recognize seductions as static. You will find courage traveling with you in practical ways, in how you say no without apology, how you apologize without erasing yourself, how you keep your word without theater. Do not mistake recognition for elevation. It is responsibility that bows you nearer to the ground where seeds are planted and tended. The clearer you carry it, the less you need to announce it. Those who are ready will feel it the way the thirsty feel the air cool before rain. Your life becomes the sign. Your steadiness becomes the sermon. Your kindness becomes the evidence. So when you hear 144,000, do not hear a club you must enter. Hear a call you must answer in the vocabulary of your days. Hear the hum beneath the number. Build what is honest. Guard what is tender. Tell the truth without knives. Be merciful without leaking. Make room for a God-sized peace where panic once camped. If your heart is nodding in the quiet, trust that nod. It is older than your doubt and wiser than the noise. In the next movement, we will step nearer to the seal itself. What changes when frequency rises, why timing matters more than clocks, and how a marked life begins to alter its atmosphere without a single speech. The mark isn't ink or ornament. It's a quiet retuning of your inner compass until your whole life starts to vibrate at the pitch of truth. Picture a key you didn't know you carried sliding into a lock you didn't know was there. The click is soundless, but everything reorganizes around it. You don't leave the world. You take your seat in it with a new center. The noise that used to boss your moods loses jurisdiction. The ache that kept renegotiating your future runs out of arguments. You stop bowing to what never deserved worship, not from defiance but from recognition. Tonight matters because certain nights carry a current. There are hours when the river runs high, when loose threads gather into a single hand, when the air feels charged with recognition. You've sensed the previews already, dreams that linger like places you actually visited, a wave of warmth that feels less like emotion and more like arrival, a stillness that wraps itself around your thoughts and makes them gentler to hold. These are not theatrics. They are the first evidence of an interior upgrade quietly installing beneath your day. You won't wake with a halo. You may wake with steadier peace where worry used to pace, and a clean, unargumentative no where appeasement used to perform. The seal is armor, but not the brittle kind. It doesn't quarantine you from weather. It gives you a climate to carry through it. Spaces that once drained you will find less to grip. Voices that hooked your fear will dull against a chest that has learned its own rhythm. Invitations that once sparkled will slide off, not because you've grown cold, but because your field no longer negotiates with counterfeits. Doors that stayed shut when it wasn't time will start answering to your presence when it is. Protection begins to look like precision, unexpected help at the edge of a choice, timing that keeps you from settling, synchronicities like stepping stones across uncertain water. Life won't become easy. It will become intelligible. Spectacle will miss this because the seal hates a stage. Being marked doesn't grant rank. It grants responsibility. Your words matter because they're clean, not because they're loud. Your yes begins to build rooms. Your no begins to save futures. Even your attention turns sacramental. Wherever you place it, life grows. Wherever you remove it, life releases. Pride can't travel with this. Comparison loses its appetite around it. The clearer the mark rests on you, the more ordinary you may appear. Calm eyes, steady hands, a voice that doesn't need to win. While the atmosphere around you shifts in ways that cannot be faked, your body may start speaking more plainly. A bright tingle along the scalp as if someone opened a hidden window. A wash of heat or a fine, cool thread along the spine like a string being tuned. A heaviness that feels like being held rather than burdened. Tears without sorrow because something old is losing its grip. A shrinking appetite for noise and a growing one for water, clean air, honest conversation. Sleep that delivers sequences which feel instructional, not random. Waking with a phrase that seems borrowed from your future. Let the rational mind rest. Not everything the spirit says fits in a spreadsheet. Keep a pen nearby. Capture fragments. You're not chasing omens. You're honoring guidance. Because the seal is a commissioning, it will rearrange your outer life to match an inner truth you can no longer betray. Relationships that depended on your self-abandonment will either heal or end. Work that asked you to trade integrity for belonging will lose its glamour. Habits that numbed ache will lose their flavor. None of that is punishment. It's housekeeping. The seal does not shame what must go, it simply stops subsidizing it. As space clears, new rooms appear. People arrive whose presence feels like a language you once spoke. Opportunities meet you at your real height instead of your old crouch. Doors you knocked on for years as a stranger open to you as a citizen. You won't need to push. You will need to walk. Participation matters, not because you manufacture grace, but because grace loves a willing threshold. Sit quietly before sleep. Breathe as if each inhale were consent. If words help, let them be vows you can actually keep. I am ready. I accept what is mine. I align with what is true. Don't perform this, mean it. Sincerity outruns volume. If you stand under night sky, let its wideness speak for you. If you are in a small room, let your stillness become a cathedral. The place is irrelevant. Posture is everything. The seal looks for a heart that has stopped bargaining and started belonging. Do not demand fireworks as proof. Some will feel a surge, others only a gentle click. Both are real. What confirms the marking isn't the drama of arrival, but the fruit that follows. You'll notice you stop auditioning for rooms you already belong in. You stop rescuing what prefers its chains. You tell the truth kindly and leave it standing even when silence would get you praised. Panic yields to patience. Courage begins to cost convenience. Love sets boundaries without losing tenderness. This is the texture of a sealed life. Quiet authority, practical compassion, refusal to leak. If there is one sentence to take into sleep, let it be this. The mark does not end mystery. It ends wandering. You will still walk by faith, but now as someone who knows which way is home. And as that knowing stabilizes, a new question rises, not with fear, but with a hope-scented curiosity. How will I recognize in the days ahead that tonight was real and not a beautiful mood? The answer is already on its way. Next, we'll name the signatures that linger after the moment and show you how to read your life when the seal starts speaking through it. You don't need an outside verdict to certify what heaven has already begun. The evidence shows up in the way your inner world refuses to behave like it did yesterday. It starts as a hush that isn't empty, a fullness that doesn't compete for noise. You wake before the alarm with the aftertaste of a dream that will not dissolve in daylight. Colors too precise, faces too near, symbols that feel less like entertainment and more like instruction. At the sink, an ordinary memory tilts and becomes luminous. Your nights aren't just rest anymore, they're classrooms. The rational mind hurries in to file this under coincidence, but the body won't comply. Your chest loosens, your shoulders drop a fraction, recognition ripples through the ribs. This is how the seal speaks first, not as spectacle, but as memory returning to a house you didn't know you owned. Numbers begin to find you the way a friend finds your eyes across a crowded room. They appear on the microwave clock, on the receipt, on a street sign, stamped onto a message that lands the precise minute you whispered for guidance. You try to call it pattern seeking because that's safer than feeling watched over, but the timing keeps meeting your private questions with a calm you can't fabricate. The universe isn't trying to dazzle you. It's practicing a language you already speak. The more you answer with quiet gratitude instead of frantic grasping, the clearer the dialogue becomes, like a station that was static yesterday suddenly coming in clean. Your body steps forward as teacher. A fine humming along the crown like a hidden window opening to fresh air. Warmth blooming under the sternum and settling as if a lamp has been switched on behind the heart. At odd hours, your hands tingle with the same innocent electricity you felt as a child when you knew something good was about to happen. None of it demands performance. It asks permission. Water tastes like relief. Night sky feels less like ceiling, more like gate. Tears arrive without grievance attached. Washing, not accusing. Making room for a quiet that feels earned rather than imposed. The seal doesn't shatter your life. It changes the altitude at which the same life is lived. Sensitivity deepens, but it doesn't leave you raw. Headlines lose the right to set your temperature. Rooms that once demanded you shrink reveal themselves as theaters that never deserved a ticket to your nervous system. Compassion grows without erasing boundaries. You listen longer while carrying less that isn't yours. Anger, when it rises, comes clean, does its work, and leaves without poisoning the well. Joy begins to travel in smaller, sturdier pieces. Steam over a mug, sunlight across a floorboard, a stranger's kindness landing like a promise kept. You aren't becoming fragile. You're becoming accurate. Outside, rearrangement begins. The postponed conversation finally happens, and you notice a fatigue lift that you had mislabeled loyalty. An opportunity that used to glitter reads counterfeit. Your no arrives without apology, and the relief that follows tells you you've stopped charging your soul for other people's comfort. Another door opens, not loud or grand, simply aligned, and your feet move before your mind drafts a speech. People appear who speak in the same key you've been hearing in your dreams. With them, time feels different, unhurried and efficient at once, as if the hours remembered their true employer. This isn't a movie montage. It's a day done honestly. Synchronicity becomes frequent enough to trust. A book falls open to the sentence you needed. A song you haven't heard in years plays at the precise moment a buried memory asks to be healed. A hawk circles over asphalt. A feather waits on the sidewalk. A breeze wraps you during prayer. None of this persuades the determined skeptic, and none of it needs to. Creation isn't flattering you. It's confirming you're tuned to its frequency, that you and it are listening to the same conductor. The gap between thought and experience narrows. You think of a friend and they text. You choose forgiveness and sleep returns to your house. You bless what hurt you and discover more oxygen than yesterday. The world hasn't changed its rules. Your resonance has, and reality responds as it always does. Guidance grows less theatrical and more reliable. Not booming commands, just the path of least distortion. The right choice unclenches your jaw. The wrong one requires a story in which you are smaller than you are. Peace stops being a visitor and becomes a resident you can consult. 10 honest minutes with a hand over your heart outperforms an hour of arguing with fear. You write down what arrives before it has proof. Not to force an outcome, but to respect a conversation that's finally two-sided. Willingness becomes your craft. You practice making room for grace until it feels as natural as breathing. Most telling is the sensation of remembrance. Hearing about the 144,000 no longer lands as trivia from a far book. It opens a window in a familiar house. You don't puff up, you bow. I came for this doesn't sound like importance, it sounds like alignment. You don't need to convince anyone. Your life will do the talking in ordinary ink. A habit released, a boundary held without thorns, a promise kept when no one is watching, a morning given to quiet instead of combat with a screen. The seal proves itself by fruit, not fireworks. If your body answers these words with a long exhale you didn't know you were holding, count it as evidence. If your eyes sting without sorrow, count it as evidence. If a steady calm rises where performance used to scramble for lines, count it as evidence. You're not waiting to be made worthy. You're agreeing to be made ready. And readiness carries its own sign. A new question forming without panic. Now that I know this is real, how do I carry it into the world without losing the tenderness that found me? The next movement already holds that answer, and it is simpler than the mind prefers. We'll open that page and let the mission speak. Less as pressure, more as purpose finally allowed to breathe. Purpose doesn't arrive as a spotlight. It settles as a way of standing. Those who carry the seal aren't sent to be admired from a distance. They are sent to be useful at close range. Hidden years did not train you so your name would echo. They trained you so peace would. The mission begins the moment you choose to be a presence that steadies rather than stirs, that clarifies rather than confuses, that blesses rather than bargains. Your life becomes a sentence God speaks in ordinary rooms, and the grammar of that sentence is simple. Truth voiced gently, compassion with a spine, order that doesn't petrify, joy that doesn't perform. The world will try to hire you for its circus. Your work is to keep choosing the temple. To carry light in a noisy age is to become a tuning fork that refuses to ring to panic. People will arrive with weather they want you to fix. You cannot stop the storm and you do not need to. What you carry is climate. When you occupy your body fully, breathe from the ground up and keep your word without theatre, rooms adjust. Arguments lose their appetite because there is nothing in you willing to feed them. Despair comes looking for a foothold and finds none. This isn't passivity. It is unadvertised authority. You become a quiet reminder that chaos is not inevitable, tenderness is not weakness, and clarity can be kind. Attention turns into a sacrament in your hands, and you steward it like clean water, refusing to pour it into every demand, choosing instead to irrigate whatever actually grows life. Awakening others isn't demolition by volume. It is the slow mercy of presence that lets sleepers remember their names. One day, it looks like a conversation where you ask a true question and stay long enough for a true answer. Another day, it's a line you write, a melody you follow, a design you render, a meal you make with reverence because you know the table is an altar. Sometimes it means speaking in rooms where power performs and saying only what is necessary without borrowing their mask. You weren't sent to win arguments. You were sent to keep a field clear enough that truth can be recognized when it arrives. If your work is public, let integrity be your microphone. If your work is hidden, let consistency be your bell. Heaven hears both at the same volume. Service is the riverbed that keeps your gifts from flooding the wrong towns. You have been entrusted with perception that cuts through fog, intuition that hears footsteps before the corner, creativity that midwives futures. None of it is for spectacle. Use what you carry to lift burdens, repair dignity, and open paths where shame built fences. Influence will come, because clarity attracts. Aim it like sunlight through a window, warming what is cold without setting the house on fire. There will be offers to trade resonance for applause. Decline them. Applause is cotton candy to the soul. Mission is bread. The grid of light is not a metaphor to admire, but a network to weave. Solitude taught you your pitch. Now harmony will multiply it. You will meet eyes that speak your unlearned language. With them, time behaves differently. Work that would exhaust you alone becomes light in their company. A single call aligns 3 decisions. A private problem reveals itself as shared and surrenders faster. Do not build towers or thrones. Build tables and bridges. Keep the alliances free of hierarchy and heavy with honesty. Name your shadows before they name you. Laugh often enough to keep pride from getting bored. Correct without humiliation. Protect without collusion. This is how the lattice tightens until a neighborhood feels different without knowing why. Holding the line during upheaval will test the training. Systems will groan as they give birth to what they tried to deny. Headlines will howl like falling sky. The sky is not falling. Illusions are. Your task is not to gloat at collapse, but to become a runway for order. When markets convulse and rhetoric sharpens, be the person who remembers to breathe first. When communities fracture, create a room where enemies can sit without losing face. When fear tries to recruit you with urgency, let urgency speak, and then answer with pace. Your calm will be mislabeled denial by those who only trust alarms. Keep your calm. It is medicine. You know the difference between apathy and anchored love. Set your rhythm to that difference. Inner mastery isn't an elective. It is maintenance for your instrument. Old wounds will try to audition for lead roles as visibility grows. They will arrive dressed as righteous fury or vintage stories you have outgrown. Meet them the way a craftsman meets a knot in wood, with patience and proper tools. Confess quickly, forgive without theatre, rest before you break. Eat like someone with a mission and sleep like someone who trusts God while they cannot watch. Say no to what flatters you into forgetting yourself. Say yes to what costs comfort but buys clarity. Perfection is not the aim. Purity of intention is, because intention sets frequency, and frequency determines reach. Protection in this assignment isn't a fence you build. It is a field you keep. Some days you will stand in the gap, praying until peace returns to a house that forgot its windows, holding posture until a city remembers its spine. Other days your holiest work will be to laugh with a child, tend a garden, or walk by water until your nervous system remembers beauty is not a rumor. Do not despise the quiet tasks. A policy bends because a heart softened in a kitchen. Angels are briefed by how you chose gentleness where sarcasm would have won the room. Heaven counts differently than crowds. Love is the law that governs this mission. Not softness that avoids edges, but the steady warmth that melts what should not have frozen and hardens what must not go soft again. Love draws boundaries that protect the tender without roasting the lost. Love tells the truth without knives. Love sits with grief until it finishes its sentence, then invites joy to speak. This love isn't a mood, it is craftsmanship. Practice until your presence becomes refuge, until strangers exhale beside you without knowing why, until enemies run out of reasons to hate because you refuse to hate them back. Do not mistake this for weakness. It is the hardest work the soul can do, and it is the only work that does not return empty. The mission of the 144,000 is frequency made flesh. Peace you can feel in a room, courage that doesn't roar, clarity that doesn't cut, joy that doesn't need a stage. Walk it out in ordinary ink. The text you send that heals more than it demands, the bill you pay on time, the promise you keep when the lights are off, the prayer you whisper for a city that will never know your name. This is how the seal proves itself. This is how the world remembers its center. And this is how the quiet ones, scattered like lanterns across the field, make a night look like morning. When the seal rests, the work is simple. Keep your peace. Tell the truth gently and let love carry a spine. You weren't chosen to be loud, but to be clear, an ordinary life steady enough to remind rooms of their center. Walk lightly, serve quietly, and guard your intention. Frequency becomes flesh in small, faithful acts. If you do this, you won't need to announce anything. The world will feel the morning in you. If this spoke to you, leave a single word below, ready, so the field knows you're standing in it. And if you want to keep walking together, tap subscribe now so you don't miss what unfolds next. Thank you for being here. Breathe, stay soft, and I'll see you in the next chapter.